There are many skills and perks to put your hard-earned level ups into, from general increases to damage to just breaking the game is staggering, and you would think getting to 100 in a skill should reward you with a game-breaking perk. Some are superly overpowered like sneak or archeries, some are garbage, and then there is one perk that is so forgotten about, no one ever talks about it. The Fusor at home, the shield charge. Is this perk actually garbage, or does it actually have a niche? That is what I aim to find out, as today I shall attempt to suffer through Skyrim with the shield charge. The charge is a very funny perk, where if you sprint while holding the shield, you will knock over the target, but there is a small delay to the connection to the ragdoll. It's almost like they put it in the game and didn't bother testing it out, and let me tell you, I will exploit this quirky perk to its fullest. Rules are self-explanatory. I am not allowed to damage anything without running into them at full charge like a freight train into a van. No super major glitches like the fortified restoration loop, and no companions as usual, though they'll end up as speed bumps anyways. No bonus objectives for today because I don't expect to do much for this perk, so how long will it be until I get so frustrated by this perk I decide to charge onto the interstate? Let's find out. Beginning at the character creator, I am bummed Skyrim does not believe in fun or eldritch abominations like Oblivion, so I have to settle on a generic orc with some genetic defects that really likes trains, or so the parents believed. I watched some head get the tip chopped off, wrong head, a little too high, and I am charging without a shield into the keep. I set it with the Stormcloaks, just so I can sit around and loot the body of the captain for her heavy armor. Bloody Imperials? I'm just trying to sweep the keep, and now I need bleach for all this blood. That bleach was reserved for the Vigilance water supply. I cannot do much for the introduction, not until I can get a shield, and in the torture chamber, I find said shield, letting me be warmly embraced by the torturer and his friend. You don't need to remind me I get tortured on a daily basis at work. The rest of the introduction went by slowly, mostly trying to get any levels I can into the block tree, meanwhile Roloff does whatever the hell Roloff does. Probably trying not to roll off the highway and into a valley. You know, icy roads along a mountain pass. Eventually I spent some time getting beat by some bare ass, and yeah, I was sure taking a beating there, but the block experience was more than tantalizing. But given this is the tutorial, the experience gain really isn't the greatest, so I just leave the bear behind and enter the cold world, uncaring about my plights. I have one objective, one mission in life. No, it isn't getting blocked to 100, it is to run through the wilderness without any clothing. You know, priorities. Since I am early on in the game, my supplies are pretty much non-existent, but that is what taken from others is for. Anything to help me out. Once I have completed my usual circuit of vendor chests and breaking down the enchanted gear for later, I can begin working on going to trainers and buying some block levels to at least help me out in the grind. So, there are only 2 block trainers in the entire game. It's like they didn't expect anyone to use the block tree much. Hell, this is the first time I've ever actually used a f***ing shield in Skyrim. So the first and obvious trainer is Ninjata at Whiterun, but one small problem. If I want to train with her, I have to pass Filcus's test of strength, but since I don't know how to use my shield as a frisbee, that is out of the picture, leaving only the alternative, a chief at an orcish stronghold, hence why I picked Orc at the start of the run. Silly me thought the chief was at the camp south of Markarth, an easier camp to get to, but nope, he is just a blade trainer. That rules out the easier camp to get to, so now my next camp is literally in the most remote location in Skyrim, near where a dragon priest is taking a catnap. On my way to Mor Khazgûr, I hope Khazgûr is good for seconds, I came across a headless horseman. Judging by the way they ran into chickens, it truly is headless. The jog up to the camp wasn't that interesting, just avoiding the local politics of the Forsworn and wolves and making sure I'm not turned into a fancy feast. And eventually arrive at the camp, and I can talk to the chief about training my Twitter block list full of AI bots and political hacks that are probably just bots from other countries. Once I ran out of levels, I decided, sure, I could just train on the local kitties. They were hitting me super hard, and I don't think I'm ready for this training montage. Still gotta keep things simple. Yeah, if I want to train my blocking, I will first need to be able to handle a beating, so an upgrade on armor is in order. And if you say go for the best armor in the game, you would be correct. It's like you all know how I like to break my games into a million pieces for comedy. I hacked my way from Helgen towards Arkwyn Point, since I have the pay to win 10th anniversary, 20th anniversary, 30th copy of Skyrim for some casual armor hanging out, and I couldn't steal a hunter's horse. Bummer. At least the game is nice enough to hand me a fresh plate of vampires after they have finished consuming their fill of vigilance. I am so proud of them, they only learn from the best. or most depraved, psychopathic, furry-adjacent Skyrim content creator. I led them back to the hunter for her to get off her high horse long enough for me to get right on it, and climb up to the end of the Arcwind, where at the top of the tower, a free set of dragonbone armor is hanging out. I honestly thought you got a shield from this, but I was mistaken, hence the main reason I came up here to begin with. I just take the time to train up my block skills quite a bit on the free and easy Draugr here, until I get bored and tried picking on someone closer to my own size. Should have put down physical size, not egotistical. Needing to get ready for my long training montage ahead of me, I entered Whiterun for the first time, and vendor glitching from every merchant I came across. I am going to need a small fortune of a moderate-sized nation's GDP for all the power leveling I am about to undergo. And for the next ungodly long time, I would go to Chief Lorak, get 5 levels, travel to vendors, rob them of everything they are worth, then return. Sometimes I get some distractions, like watching some deep body acupuncture gone wrong, or the game crashing because I thought about playing the Elder Scrolls game released 2 games prior that YouTube does not like me saying. Though, judging by how recent videos have been going, I don't think it likes me anymore. I had a long pattern going, and I decided to trim out the part of it by adding some gold to my inventory just to speed up the training process. We aren't here to watch me stand still for 2.5 hours. If you want me to do that, just go to my day job as of writing the script, though I might not be at that job as of the time of releasing this video, and with how fast I do the inputs, I think I am overflowing the training, but oh well. If you don't like this, be sure to drop a dislike, and also subscribe so you don't miss an upload to call me a fraud. YouTube likes engagement. Just not with me. Once I had maxed out the training, I decided to go back to the Saber Cats, and they were giving me a lot of training experience, but too much damage between the 2 of them for me to handle. So I led them back to the Orcish stronghold, and of course, the chief was the first to dive right into the litter box. I call this a return on my investment. I get my dubious gold back, and some blood on it. Don't worry, I donate the gold to the first orphanage I see. Maybe. Probably not. I never ran into any orphanages to donate the money to. But at least, I am almost ready to start the run for real. Just nearly 2 hours later, a third of my run was dedicated to just getting this run started. I returned to Whiterun to at least get an upgrade on my shield. Now I'm a competent level, and the game decided to run at a low poly texture to save on resources. I see you, Bitcoin miner in the background. I talked to the Jarl and progressed the story as normal, sending me off to Bleak Falls Barrow, where I plan on maxing out my block skill, and of course adding on some fortify health for the build. Ready as I can be, I climbed up the 700 pieces of geometry to the Nordic ruins, making sure to practice the art of backing up a semi-truck into a loading dock and not causing the entire building to collapse. These level 1 bandits are next to nothing, so I just entered the burrow, and in the first puzzle room was a highwayman. As a fellow lifted pickup truck enthusiast, we conversed for a while, as a drunk biker in a bar fight over who decided to play dominoes with the biker gang's bikes. Hiding behind a brazier, should I need a quick moment of respite. Took about 10 minutes, but my block finally hit 100, or at about 2 hours into the video recording, or 1700 words into the script, or 1500 attempts at making coherent sentences later, I can finally begin my path of carnage. There's a slight delay, but oh boy, it sends the enemies flying. The rest of the burrow goes by so much faster, kinda helps I don't need to stop at the stoplights. What's a little pedestrian speed bump? Since I can't use a charge for the spider webs, I just shield bash at the webbing until Arvel could be free. Go on, Arvel, go face your fears like a real Dunmer. Good, spider, enjoy your meal. With my stamina kinda garbage, I don't bother running too much. Well, until I ran into a frost troll. Emphasis on the into. That felt satisfying. I continue knocking the Draugr about, and when it comes to the high ground, I am an unstoppable force, and if you dare to cross my path, you will be sent down a level or 2. And it is pretty satisfying. As for the Overlord, I touched some bacon, which was enough to send the White Lord right off a cliff and to its death. Maybe that's why they tell me, don't moonwalk into traffic. There is one thing this build has taught me. I'm not eating healthy enough. No, string cheese and heavily processed and frankly sickening granola bars don't constitute a healthy lunch, so vegetable soup it is. And now I can do the vendor exploit, just running over the vendors if they don't have anything on hand. And Azim showed up for me to test something out. Sweet! I can commit murder for 40 gold. And also, Carlotta, that is not how you hold a broom. I handed in my Dragon Ball to the scientist to do sciencey things, hopefully, and not to lodge it up his butthole, and turns out a dragon wants to play with the local chew toy guards. I find Delphine heading back to her home, and I give her a helpful push in the right direction. No, she doesn't fall down the stairs, much to everyone's delight, but a little waterboarding can't hurt. On my way to the first dragon fight, I am very nervous how this will play out. Either I can do damage to dragons, or I'm going to be stuck for Alduin. But it is time I reveal my trap card that will trivialize this run, much like every other run. So, there is a little glitch you can do to indefinitely sprint. Just crouch, hold block, move forward, and press sprint. And voila, you'll be starting to run indefinitely. Super easy, and with me sprinting everywhere, it will really speed up the rest of the run. I accidentally flatlined a guard and began Mjolnir. I think running over the guard must have caused something to break in the script, because I don't have as much backup as I usually do. This just makes things more difficult to me. And upon running into the cold-blooded bat, I find something off, like the health bar isn't doing anything. Well, except for Irilith doing her job. Glad one of us can do the job. Things took twice as long. At least with my armor and block skill, I am at no risk of dying. From the battle. Dying from starvation? Very much so. Still waiting on my raise so I can afford ramen. Irilith can deal the final blow, and suddenly, I am very nervous what the future dragon fights will entail. Not done with my experiment, I ran to the nearby giant camp, and yeah, I can't toss these titans around. My car instead turned into a tree stability test. I relayed the good news to the Jarl, and he suggests I go for an aerobics class. I don't really feel like getting my steps in today, so I just booked it to the one location everyone wants to test their ragdoll physics at. You know the one. I sprint my way there, stopping for nothing, and even bumped up my wanted star. I was briefly stopped by some soldiers, and not wanting to pay my protection fee, I am much more of a freebird, no seatbelt driving down Nebraska at 120 miles per hour since there's nothing there sort of person. I just give these soldiers a good nudge off the cliff, and the push is very inconsistent. It just means more flattening by my tires. I am very much not tired by the stupidity of this weapon. I just started to run over anything that gets in my way. Necromancer, wolves, Canada, and toll booths. Those booths that have those metal barriers. Let me drive through the barriers for free, damn it. And why yes, this whole charge in through Velthum Towers was so fun. This alone makes grinding to block 100 worth it. Once I had my fill of vehicular man laughter charges. Wait, the script is missing an S. Still funny though. I just sprinted my way past some bears and right through Irisstead. Yep, straight through the crowd of pedestrians. I am so going to hell for this. I did take the time chasing after one Barknar because it amuses me. The sad thing about the shield charge is that I can't walk through the ice raids, so that sucks. But at the very least, I can bully the frost troll into submission, and making sure to back up and run it over again. Sure, throw a tantrum, like I care until I plow you off the mountain. I get a lecture on driving safety by the Greybeards? Bruh, you geezers can't go 30 down a highway. I have seen horrible drivers pass tractors nearly getting head-on collisions probably once a week. They also pass people going 10 over the speed limit, so I think they're just trying to see how hard they can get their insurance companies. I show the Greybeards how to actually sprint, collateral damage notwithstanding, and I get my task to get horny. But not done with my chaos yet, I decide to play around with the Greybeards to push them off a mountain. Yeah, frankly, I deserve that. If only kinda. On my way to Usengrov, I decided to make a couple of pit stops along the side of the highway, even making sure to swerve off the road to add to my high score. Yeah, the Hall of Vigilance are burned down, so I can't partake in my usual sacrifice to my dark gods. Someone already beat me to it. Yeah, I am very bummed about this, but it is nice to share in the carnage every once in a while, fighting back my tears. I just sprinted my way up to the Lord's Stone, trying not very hard, or at all, to avoid the wildlife, and seems the highway patrol is onto me, as they have sent some bounty hunters after me. And they were smart enough to hide out where I normally visit during my runs. Too bad they weren't smart enough to not hang out next to a cliff. Nothing else happened on my way to Used Preston Garvey, except wondering why the Stonehill roads were extra bumpy. Since there weren't many cliffs in Usengraf for me to take advantage of, I just ignored everything in my way, pushing them out of my way if I have to. Every drugger followed me into the second section, where I gave them a first-hand lesson how we in Sparta drive, and why the DOT has a do not give license order to anyone in ancient Sparta. Took a couple attempts to get through the gates, but the rest of the section wasn't too interesting, and I only need to use veggie soup just so I can get through some webbing. I get my license revoked letter from the Horn. Very rude. I worked hard to forge this license, thank you very much. Wait, ignore what I just said. And left the dungeon. Needing to get away from my necromancer problem, I ran into Morthal, forgetting that they very much don't like me passing stopped school buses in my death race, and promptly arresting me. Frankly, given how much of a menace to society I am surprised I don't get an even larger bounty. When I came to from my drunk tank, some cultists tried abducting me for reasons only known to my kidneys. Sorry, but my kidneys are reserved for the Rimworld, thank you very much. The guards were able to forget about my past crimes, and I can fast travel back to Delphine. She invites me to her love shack, and yeah, no, I at least have some standards. Blender is a minimum on a drunk night. Time is of the essence, and I cannot stop to chat. There is a dragon that needs slaying, and upon a Celica near-death experience, I find the bad news. I cannot run into the dragons, and I know exactly why. This cat is getting behind my computer. Their damage hitbox is deep within the model where their chest is, and there is no way for me to come into contact with this. I ran into this problem in my ebony armor video, but that is what leading dragons to my brethren are for, even if I end up getting another chieftain killed in action. I think I have ended up doing more harm than good to orc kind. I call it a skill issue with the chiefs, and Malakath is very displeased. I am just a horrible individual. Delphine tells me good job, and thinks the best course of action for me is to do a drive-by at the Thalmor Embassy. I too would love doing some crime, but not when my only option this year costs $100 a digital download card for a console that is actively shooting itself in the foot. I give Melbourne all my goodies, then took a taxi to the embassy. Of course, the f***ing taxi driver took 3 detours to rack up my bill, but at least I can partake in pleasantries at the party. I think there was a miscommunication with Delphine. I thought she said to do a drive through the embassy, so that is what I did. Drove right through the Thalmor agents, barely stopping, and also stealing from everyone, unfortunate enough to get a first-hand experience what being a hit-and-run victim is like. When I got into the prison, the game glitched out, and now forward is some random direction, and I can grab my required paperwork for my court date for too many driving-related tickets, and politely and totally legally grab my key out of the jail. Guards can't say no if you flatten them against the wall. Just blood-curdling screams of pain. I decided to skip past Delphine and go right to Esbern, and I thought I could skip the gatekeeper and go right into the sewage. But nope, he just steals my items and let me in. And I thought I was the immoral one. The sewer dive was pretty quick, not really stopping to fight. I just led the lowlifes into the dive bar until a drunkard someone was banging his wife. I just ignored the fact that it was me all along. With my car repeatedly against the wall, I arrived at my destination and offered a taxi ride. A real crazy taxi, not an AI one, back to Sanctuary. Yeah, everyone is after my tail, so I had to book it out of there. Innocent bystanders notwithstanding. They were knocked away, and eventually the worst faction can be reunited, but before I could go to Cloud Ruler Temple, wait, wrong Akaviri Temple, repurposed to be a brothel, I decided to dip into an iceberg and grab keys to Aftan. No, it isn't some fancy sports car, but a key to a ruin. Damn it, I wanted to turn my Ferrari into a snow shovel. When I returned to Winterhold to do donuts in the interstate in a blizzard, there was a f***ing dragon hanging out. Bloody prude, you made me run over a chicken. I would have run over anyways to stroke my fragile ego. As for the icy Aftan, I normally sprint through this place when I don't have any decent weaponry, so this is pretty much normal for me. Except I don't need to slow down to catch my breath, so it goes by even quicker. Something stupid I did think of, I sort of wish Skyrim embraces stupidity. Well, besides sprinting sideways. And if you have shield charge, you should be able to use the shield to slam down to the ground, causing a massive shockwave, but that might be asking too much. The rest of Aftan goes by as normal, slide into third base. The Empires though might wonder how he got onto the field, and hit a Centurion so hard, it rewires itself back to sleep. You see? Brunt force trauma solves any technological problem. Just don't ask my old controllers during my Overwatch days. I then persuaded the bickering couple to let me into Blackreach, and I'm starting to think I maybe should have picked up the Blooded Shield to maybe do some bleed damage with my shield charges, but hindsight is only 20/20. Plus, I only have an hour left of the run, and most of it is unskippable cutscenes. Yeah, this run was a much shorter run, but frankly with everything going on in my overwhelming life, I will take an easier run. I sprinted past the funky mushrooms, though the thought did cross my mind to inhale as much as I can, but I am already on enough of a drug-fueled and exhaust-inhaled rampage. Don't need to add any funny colors. I moonwalked my way up to the buttons and pressed them until something happened. No idea what. My mind is too small to figure that out. All it seeks is the satisfaction of running over a farmer and their livestock. Unrelated intrusive thought, but I would love to see a motorcyclist pass a pea harvester just by going underneath them. I am too island for my own good. An unstoppable force meets a very movable object, and I casually do donuts to the hippie camp. The charge to the Forsworn camp was pretty quick. I don't bother with engaging with the Briarheart and his lovers. I just sprinted my way to the ruins so quick, Esbern hasn't caught up after a few waits. My annoying blade backup finally arrives at their destination without breaking a few speeding laws, and I can get an upgrade on my shield, something a little more visible and Captain American, and now I can proceed to the end game of the run already. I waste no time. I immediately get an earful from the boomers. Why the hell am I going the speed limit? It is too fast for them. And I can clear away the snowstorm, so that way the first dusting of snow for the year doesn't cause a 20-car pileup on the highways because everyone forgets how to drive on snow. Take it slow, give extra time to brake, and pretend the road is full of black ice. I converse with the party snacks after a brief smuggling trip to every neighboring state for some funny blunt force trauma to my senses, and before I fight Alduin, which is the worst part of the run, I use the small pebble in my brain to enchant my new shield with Resist Frost, since I know Alduin will be using Frost Breath on me. It's like I play this game too much or something. Alright, time to rip off the band-aid, and time to get the worst part of the run done. Something I am fearing, and yet here I am, speedrunning my way right to it. Of course I had to dive back into Xenoblade speedrunning. I love my Ether Jet. I pulled out my scroll of every driving law I failed to adhere to. Who the hell cares about what color or how long the stripes are on the road? We are impatient people, and Alduin can get his ass beat so hard he was hiding for thousands of years to suffer a more humiliating beating. So, I cannot do any damage to Alduin. My shield charge does nothing, so how the f am I supposed to get through this fight? Well, there is a reason I kept on my Dragonbone armor. Highest damage resistance, coupled with my shield and some healing, and Alduin cannot do much to me. I am here to be Party Snack's shield. Mario can do some damage to Alduin, but once he runs out of health, I am sorta screwed. Well, there is the fireballs that do scratch damage to Alduin, so I have that backup at least. The fight wasn't difficult, but holy sh**, it was time consuming. 13 minutes of making sure Party Snacks doesn't start panting like a dog or a Yoshi getting dropped over a bottomless pit. But at least I am able to pacifist this fight. Just don't make me pacifist Alduin again. I will happily take Mankar any day. But before I can go to Sovngarde, first I have to calm down the warring sides. Don't want anyone getting bright ideas while Balgruuf plays Trapper with a dragon in his basement to do stuff that I don't want to know. Which just means talking to the Greybeards, running over the mailman and the cops just turning a blind eye, and picking up the kids to go through the daycare. I just left the game on pause as I made myself lunch from the drive-thru, even if the restaurant has no drive-thru. After a long while of bickering, both sides can come to an agreement, and once everyone left, you know, there is a mountain here. It would be a real shame if there was some madman with the ability to knock people off said mountain, especially if I hate nearly everyone here. This, my friends, is the definition of catharsis. Sure, the guards aren't very keen on me giving Balgruuf a shortcut back to Whiterun. Oh well, I called my Uber driver, who was very drunk and picked up the wrong person, but eventually got it right, at least long enough for me to ride to the final dungeon. I waste no time on my sprinting. I barreled my way through the entrance, and while sure I can knock the Draugr down, I don't really feel like it. Oh yeah, since I'm considered in stealth mode, I get some sneak experience. I just forgot to put it in my script until now. So, in an essence, I am a stealth shield runner. My god, this run is so f***ing stupid. The only time I need to pause in my running is to solve the puzzles, while every Draugr is confused what is this automotive technology and the motive behind running over the gravestones in a monster truck. Also using the last of my veggie soup to get through some webbing, while committing some vehicular arachnoslaughter in the meantime. Probably the most legal thing I have done this video. As for the Overlord at the end, with the diamonds are Eternal Claw, I just repeatedly ran the poor Draugr over again and again and again and again until the Overlord's life essence just gives up and vanishes. Me too, buddy. I ignored the Dragon Priest at the end, and while sure I could do some damage and knock the priest over, I didn't really feel like it. My work crimes list is long enough. I did the speed limit through the dense fog, something not very smart, since there could be a deer or former high kings on the road, but that isn't my concern. My real concern is Soon. I'm not scared of Soon, so much so, I just led the meathead to the bone bridge and gave him a helpful nudge off the cliff and to his death. Fight dirty, not smarter. I did try to push Soon off the cliff again, but sadly the game said no more fun. Damn it. At least I can have some fun with my backup. I am such a horrible person, and that is probably why y'all watch me. We shouted the fog away and summoned Alduin for the last time. Yeah, I cannot do anything to this lizard, but that is what standing next to some muzzles for brains is for. beckoning the fireballs until Soon can rip and tear for me. Yeah, with Soon doing the hard work, he becomes the MVP as I stand around with a finger or two in my asshole. But of course, I cannot do anything to the worm since I cannot get into the hitbox. So yeah, game over for the run. I cannot kill a worm by thrusting my entire weight into his face, but I sure can by shoving my shield with my arm. The dragon goes boom, and no, you cannot beat Skyrim with a shield charge. That was a stupid run. The shield charge is a gimmicky skill, but not worth going to 100 block for. Sure, block isn't the worst skill to grind to 100 for, but in Skyrim, offense is everything. An unrelenting force is just there, doing the job of the bash, and then some. More so, it exists as a novelty and nothing more. But I love the stupidity of some weapons and restrictions, so I had fun in the end, even if my license will end up getting revoked and sent to jail for a long time. With how life has been treating me, I hope the shorter run would help me pace myself better when things are up in the air for me. As for what's to come next, honestly, I have no idea. Might be a challenge run or something different. Stay tuned to that. Nothing else to say, except for a massive shout out to all my channel members and patrons who always charge into oncoming traffic and come out perfectly fine. The rest of traffic, not so much. Links to them along with my socials and Discord in the description. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to drop a like, subscribe for more masochism and any ways to torture myself, leave them down below. This has been Orpheolus, and I'll see you on the next one.